Hey there, I'm Julie Bergen. I'm 25, living up in the Big Apple with more money than I know what to do with. I grew up in a massive mansion upstate, but despite the luxury, it was lonely as hell. My parents, Davis and Nancy Harley, were always too busy jet-setting or closing deals to pay much attention to me. I was just a pawn in their game of high society chess. Julie, darling, stand up straight. The Vanderbilts are coming for dinner, my mom would say, fussing over my dress. But Mom, I wanted to go to Sarah's sleepover, I'd whine. Don't be silly. Networking is far more important than some childish party, she'd reply. That was my childhood in a nutshell, always on display, never truly seen. Fast forward to now, and I'm running my own art gallery in Soho. It's my pride and joy. This is incredible, Julie, my best friend and assistant, Daisy, gushed at our latest opening. You've really outdone yourself this time. I smiled, but even that small movement made me wince. Thanks, Daisy. I just wish I felt as good as the gallery looks. Still not feeling great. Maybe you should see a doctor, she said, frowning with concern. I waved her off. It's probably just stress. You know how it is, burning the candle at both ends. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. For months, I'd been feeling off, fatigue that sleep couldn't fix, hair falling out in clumps, and a constant queasy feeling in my stomach. Something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. Julie, darling. My mother's voice cut through the gallery chatter like a knife. There you are. Your father and I have been looking everywhere for you. I plastered on my best society smile. Mom, Dad, I'm so glad you could make it. My father's hand landed heavily on my shoulder. We wouldn't miss it for the world, Pumpkin. How are you feeling? I'm fine, just a bit tired, I lied, not wanting to give them the satisfaction of knowing I was struggling. Well, you must take better care of yourself, my mother said, especially with your birthday coming up. Big changes ahead, you know. Right, my 26th birthday, the day I get full control of my trust fund. $50 million, all mine. No wonder my parents were suddenly so interested in my well-being. As the night wore on, the room started to spin. Voices blurred together, faces became smears of color. The last thing I remembered was Daisy's panicked voice calling my name as the floor rushed up to meet me. Someone call an ambulance. And then, darkness. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. My so-called perfect life was about to unravel, and the truth. Well, it was far more toxic than I could have imagined. The steady beep of a heart monitor pulled me from a foggy sleep. I blinked, trying to focus on the stark white ceiling above me. She's awake, my mother's shrill voice pierced through the haze. Doctor, come quickly. Suddenly, I was surrounded. My parents hovered like vultures. Doctors poked and prodded, questions flew from all directions. How are you feeling, Miss Bergen? Can you tell us what happened? Do you remember fainting at the gallery? I groaned, overwhelmed. Can everyone just give me a minute? The room cleared, leaving only my parents and one persistent doctor. Sweetheart, we've been so worried, my father said, his voice dripping with concern that felt oddly out of place. I narrowed my eyes. How long have I been here? 3 days, the doctor chimed in. We've run a battery of tests, but so far, everything's inconclusive. Great. Just great. Days blurred together, more tests, more questions, but still no answers. My parents were constantly at my bedside, fussing over me in a way they never had before. It was unsettling. Daisy visited whenever she could, bringing updates from the gallery and a much-needed sense of normalcy. Don't you think it's weird, she whispered one day, glancing at my parents, who were chatting with a nurse outside. They've never been this attentive before. I shrugged. Maybe they're just worried. But Daisy's words planted a seed of doubt. It wasn't until a week into my hospital stay that things took a turn. A new doctor breezed into my room with an air of confidence and piercing blue eyes. "Miss Bergen, I'm Dr. Alex Foster. I specialize in toxicology, and I'd like to run a few additional tests." Something about his demeanor made me sit up straighter. "Toxicology? You think I've been poisoned?" He smiled enigmatically. "Let's not jump to conclusions. I just want to cover all our bases." As he left, a memory hit me like a truck: my 18th birthday, the day I gained partial access to my trust fund. "You're an adult now, Julie," my father had said, champagne in hand, "but remember, the bulk of your inheritance is still locked up tight until you're 26. For your own good, of course." I'd been so naive then, so trusting. But now... I called Daisy the moment I was alone. "I need you to do something for me. It's unconventional." "Anything," she replied without hesitation. "I want you to hire a private investigator to look into my parents' finances." There was a pause. "Julie, are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next few days were a whirlwind. Dr. Foster ran his tests, and Daisy reported back with alarming findings from the PI: mounting debts, failed investments, my parents teetering on the edge of financial ruin. And then, the bombshell. "I found these in your apartment," Daisy said, holding up a bag of pills. "They were hidden in your vitamin bottle, Julie." "They're not vitamins." My blood ran cold. Just then, Dr. Foster walked in, his face grim. "Miss Bergen, I have your test results." "I'm afraid it's not good news." I steeled myself, already suspecting what he was about to say. "You've been subjected to long-term arsenic poisoning. Someone has been slowly killing you." The world stopped. Everything clicked into place: the sudden attentiveness, the financial troubles, my upcoming birthday, and full access to the trust fund. My own parents had been poisoning me. "We need to be smart," Dr. Foster whispered, his eyes darting to the door. "If they suspect we're onto them." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. "What's our next move?" Over the next few weeks, we gathered evidence like spies in our own twisted family drama. Anderson, our private investigator, delivered the final blow one rainy afternoon. "There's a life insurance policy," he said, his voice heavy. "If you die before your 26th birthday, they hit the jackpot." I felt the walls closing in. Every memory, every interaction with my parents was now tainted with suspicion. It was time for the final act. The family dinner was set. My parents arrived with all their concerned looks and gentle touches. "Julie, darling," my mother cooed, adjusting my pillows. "You really should eat more. You're wasting away." I forced a weak smile. It's hard to keep anything down these days. My father patted my hand. Now, positive thinking. Remember, you'll bounce back in no time." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you both about, after." "After what, sweetheart?" my mother asked, her voice unnaturally high. "After I'm gone," I said softly. "The doctors say, well, you know." The room fell silent. I could almost hear their hearts racing. "I've been thinking about the trust fund," I continued, "and your financial situation." My father's grip on his fork tightened. "Julie, you shouldn't worry about such things." "But I do," I pressed. "I want to know you'll be okay. That it will all be worth it." "Worth what?" my mother asked sharply. I met her gaze. "The tea, the special vitamins, all your efforts." The color drained from their faces. My father recovered first, his lawyer instincts kicking in. I'm not sure what you're implying, he said stiffly. We've only ever wanted what's best for you. Like the life insurance policy I didn't know about. I countered. My mother's hand flew to her throat. How did you? It doesn't matter, I cut her off. What matters is why. Why would you do this to your own daughter? The facade crumbled. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but not of remorse, of frustration. You don't understand, she hissed. We had no choice. The debts, the lifestyle we built, we did it for you. My father interjected, his voice tight. To secure your future. I laughed bitterly. By ending it. It wasn't supposed to be like this, my mother wailed. It was just supposed to make you sick enough to. To what? I spat. Sign everything over to you. Die conveniently before my birthday. My father stood abruptly. This conversation is over. You're clearly not in your right mind. Oh, I'm in my right mind for the first time in years, I said, my voice steady. And so are the police officers listening. The door burst open as the officers read them their rights. My parents' faces contorted with a mix of shock, anger, and finally, defeat. Julie, my mother pleaded as they were led away. We're your parents. We love you. I looked at her, this woman who had traded maternal love for greed. No, I said quietly. You don't know the meaning of the word. As the door closed behind them, I felt the weight lift off my chest. But in its place was a hollow ache, a void where my family used to be. As I focused on my recovery, the media exploded with the scandal. Headlines screamed, socialite parents poison heiress daughter. It was surreal watching my family's dirty laundry air for all to see. Months passed. I threw myself into my work, expanding the gallery and exploring new artistic ventures. On my 26th birthday, I gained full control of my trust fund. It felt bittersweet. To new beginnings, Daisy raised her glass with a smile. To new beginnings, she toasted. And to true family, I added, clinking my glass against hers. Daisy, I said, turning to her. How would you feel about becoming my business partner? Her eyes widened in surprise. Are you serious? Dead serious, I grinned. I couldn't have gotten through this without you, and you're brilliant at what you do. She hugged me tightly. I'd be honored. As we pulled apart, I caught sight of Dr. Foster, Alex, across the room. He smiled and made his way over. Congratulations, Julie, he said warmly. How does it feel to be 26? Better than I ever imagined, I replied, suddenly aware of how close we were standing. Our relationship had grown over the past few months, shifting from doctor-patient to something more. A few days later, Daisy burst into my office, tablet in hand. You need to see this, she exclaimed, pulling up a news article. The headline read, Disgraced lawyer Davis Bergen scammed in prison, loses hidden assets. I skimmed the article, emotions swirling inside me. Karma, I guess, I murmured. There's more, Daisy said, swiping to another article. Eleanor Hartley sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder of heiress daughter. I sat back, processing. I should feel happy about this, right? Vindicated. Daisy squeezed my shoulder. You can feel however you want to feel, Sophie. Months turned into years. My business thrived, and my relationship with Alex deepened, but there was still one loose end to tie up. The prison visiting room was cold and sterile. My parents sat across from me, looking older and defeated. Julie, my mother breathed, her voice shaking. We're so sorry. Can you ever forgive us? I looked at them, these strangers who shared my blood. I'm not here for your apology, I said calmly. I'm here to say goodbye. But we're your parents, my father protested weakly. I stood, my voice steady. No, you're not. You lost that right when you decided your greed was more important than my life. Please, my mother sobbed. We love you. Love isn't supposed to hurt like this. Goodbye. As I walked out of the prison, I felt lighter. The last chains of my past had finally broken. Ahead of me stretched a future full of possibility, built on my terms, with people who truly cared. I took a deep breath of fresh air. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. The story has come to an end. Now I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, could you ever forgive parents who tried to murder you for money, or is some betrayal too deep for forgiveness?